What's up, Danny?
Alright, man.
What do you know, Dave?
You can take out the master. The case fatality rate's at 0.1 to 0.3.
Is it really? That's reassuring.
USC.
Everybody here's been vaccinated anyway.
USC and LA County Public Health came out with a study. They found that there were 7,000 cases in California.
My fellow godlies and Warframe enthusiasts around the world. This is Vance from the Warframe God Build series, and as promised, this is part 2 of the Railjack introduction tutorial video. But before I can get into that, I wanted to state that I'm probably going to be stepping away from Warframe for a little bit. It's not anything to do with the game itself. I'm not like burnout or anything. It's just the simple fact that I need variety, and so does my page. Looking back 5 years from now, I don't want to be known as that guy who is just exclusively creating content for Warframe, especially in an era where developers aren't really paying much attention to me. Not far be it of me to want credit for dedicating my entire YouTube page to this game, but it just feels very, very underwhelming at this time. And you know, I have my own writing, my own illustrating, everything that I want to do aside from Warframe. So there's stuff that I announced, you know, years ago that I haven't been able to really pursue, and I'm gonna go pursue those things. So I will be able to return to Warframe whenever I want, don't get me wrong. As long as there's stuff to cover, I'm gonna cover it. I do plan to give you guys an Eidolon hunt tutorial, an orb hunt tutorial, complete with builds that you should use for each Warframe in order to get all of that done. But for the moment, I just feel like this is the right step for me. So without further ado, let's really just get into this Railjack and show you what you need to pay attention to. So for the Railjack components, you're going to have components, you're going to have armaments, you're going to have avionics, you're going to have a payload, intrinsics, and customization. So with your components, it's comprised of the shield array, of the engines, and then the reactor. Now these are all pretty important. I wouldn't say that the engines are as important as everything else, but the reactor starts to become really, really important when you get better at avionics. In the shield array, well, I mean, it's kind of the same issue with Warframes right now. Shields have never really been all that great. It's more or less been about armor. So while a shield array is nice to have, this whole tab just isn't the most important thing. What I will say is that you need to have everything Mark III. Everything. I wouldn't even waste your time with building wreckage unless it was Mark III. And with that being said, I wouldn't waste your time with anything unless it's Mark III, period. So what you can do, there's a big cheat, a good way around this, and in your clan dojo, you can build all of these things that are Mark I, Mark II, and once you get the research done for those, you can skip right on down to the Mark III. You could get a standard Mark III Sigma reactor, and that'll do you just fine. Same with the engines. You definitely want to do that with Tycho Seeker, because that's the only way that you're going to get a different missile launcher, a different you know, laser beam. That's the only thing that you're going to get something that's like top tier in that category. So paying attention to that, you just want to make sure that you're getting Mark III stuff. Nothing else is worth it, okay? So for what I've done is, I mean, it's sad that all of this stuff is RNG. So you're going to pick up wreckage, and all of the stats are going to be varied. So with mine, I have a Levon shield array, which gives me plus 926 shield capacity, 0.63 second shield regeneration delay, plus 1.9% shield regeneration per second, and plus 100% of flux energy consumed is converted to shields. So this is pretty nice whenever I'm using my avionics or whatever that I'm doing that uses flux energy. It will convert it to shields. Not that that really much matters to me, because my shield, like my whole ship is already pretty beastly. It can take a brutal beating. The engines are a plus 55.9. I think that's meters per second. That's got to be meters per second. And then the boost is plus 0.19 boost speed multiplier. A lot of these stats look better on paper, but trust me, with what I've got here, these are like the top performing ones for as far as I've found. I've seen some crazy numbers out there. The Vidar reactor, it's among one of the best that you can get. You basically want these two numbers to be as high as they can possibly be. You want your avionics capacity. I would say that your avionics capacity is probably the highest priority. Flux is really up there for priorities as well, but I mean, you want to get your avionics up in the triple digits if you can, and you also want your flux capacity to be pretty high as well. But again, I would prioritize avionics over flux capacity, and we'll definitely get to that here in a moment. So moving on down your list, you have your armaments. This is the weapons that you have as a pilot if you're piloting, and then the weapons that you give to your gunners. You only have one set of guns, so 2 per person. And in total combination, I think that leads to, like, I'd say six guns. So, you know, your side gunner, your left wing gets 2 guns, and your right wing gets 2 guns. Now, if you notice here, both of mine are the same exact thing. It's the Zetki Karsinox Mark III. The thing that you want to watch for here is with the fire rate on these things, because the fire rate is what makes the true difference here. But as long as it's Zetki Karsinox Mark III, there are other weapons that are really, really strong, like the cryo cannons. Those are like outer space shotguns. Those are really, really nice. I see a lot of people using laser weaponry, and the thing about the lasers is that they just suck. They just objectively suck. It's not even really an opinion. Every time I've gotten into a Railjack that has the lasers, it always takes so long to shoot anything down. It's just not worth it. So I would strictly recommend the Zetki Karsinox or the Zetki Cryophon Mark III, because there's just nothing else better. Cryophon did receive a nerf, but it's still good. Tycho Seeker, as I mentioned before, Mark III. This is your homing missile launcher. This is really, really nice. It's just a really, really great thing to use, especially if you have access to a void hole and you trap enemies within that vortex, kind of like a Vauban's vortex. Then this is a great way to just finish all of them off with one fail swoop. I mean, you get them all clustered in one area, you pull the trigger on a missile, and it's a done deal for everybody that's in that void hole. Moving on to your actual avionics. Oh boy, is this going to be fun to explain. So, avionics are basically mods for your Railjack. There is not a whole lot of difference, and you will see that most of my components here within battle or tactical are empty. And that's because I prioritize the fact that I only have 7 avionics capacity left is a true testament to min-maxing at its best. So for the battle avionics, I have the particle ram, which deploys what it says, a particle ram, dealing 1500 damage per second. deactivate it to launch the ram outwards for 6 seconds. Flux energy cost is at 50. It's just a really good way to run into things and kill things. I have intrinsic level of 10, which means if I run into things anyways, I'm going to do automatic 2000 damage. And then on top of that, I'll do the 1500 damage that goes along with that, and per second I do an additional 1500 more. So I like to ram things. I'm very, very ram happy with my Railjack. But that's my playstyle. You could replace this with just about anything. You could go with the Shatter Burst. This creates a barrage of 5 explosions per second over 12 seconds, dealing 300 damage in 40 meters. And I don't even have this upgraded, so there's no telling what it's going to do when it's maxed out. The Tether, I've used it. I think that it's a cheap man's Void Hole. If you don't have Void Hole yet, Tether is going to be really, really good. It's just not going to. It's just definitely not going to pull the damage or the enemies that you want it to do. And then the infamous Void Hole. My God, is this so good? Void Hole creates a 110 meter black hole. Well, I'm not even reading the upgraded version. I suppose I ought to read the maxed out. So this one creates a 150 meter black hole that sucks in enemies, dealing 300 damage per second over 25 seconds. It's very costly on your flux energy, but I mean it's totally worth it because it renders the infantry just completely useless. I do not use it for damage. I use it to cluster all the enemies together. That way I can launch one Tycho Seeker into them and blow them all to smithereens. I mean, nothing is left when I do that combination. Void Hole, Tycho Seeker. You can't go wrong. Works every time. Again, if you don't have that, Fiery Phoenix, I mean, leave a trail of fire dealing 200 damage per second to enemies. Gain 10% speed and 22% damage reduction while active. Accumulate 60 damage per second. That unleashes upon deactivation. 175 meter flux capacity cost. I mean, these stats, they're good, but nothing compares to a Void Hole plus a Tycho Seeker combination. So let's hope that Digital Extremes acknowledges that and adds more weapons to your repertoire, because you know, it gets kind of like old having this be the maximum, you know, best way to deal with enemies. I'd like to see more options in these battle avionics be a little bit more viable in-game. Now moving on, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time explaining all of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly go over each one and just get on with why it's important. So forward artillery, this does damage with your forward artillery guns. The general synopsis of Railjack is that in early game, especially if your Railjack is new, you're going to need your gunners to board enemy cruise ships and sabotage it from the inside. With forward artillery, you don't even need any of that. You can just march right up to a cruise ship, knock its shields down, or shoot it a little bit with your Carsonics to rip some of the armor off, and then use the forward artillery to completely one-shot the thing. And that's why you want to have it as a Z key with plus 93.5%. That it's really going to do. It's really just going to one-shot things. It's crazy. Increase all critical damage with your turrets. I don't even think the section density needs explaining at all. You definitely want to do the maximum amount of damage that you can with turrets. This applies to your side turrets and your front. Hyper Strike is increased damage again with turrets. Very, very important. You want to be able to mow things down. Bulkhead is increase your hull by 506%. Z-Key Bulkhead is kind of hard to acquire, but it's definitely worth it because it makes you tankier. Increase max armor, again, increases your tankiness. Definitely going to need that. Increase your max shields. I could actually replace this with something else. Let's say I'm not so crazy about my shields because maybe I have a good shield array, which I do. Then I could come down to here and I could use the Battle Forge, which reduces Forge cooldown by 120 seconds. Cooldown is at 480 seconds. I think that Battle Forge is possibly the most important tactical avionic that you could use, because it It just works, man. Like engineers, especially in early game, when engineers are panicking and scrambling to get you loaded up with the resources that you need, whether it be Revelite, Flux Energy, Dome Charges, whatever it is, they can use Battle Forges with their tactical avionics and help you out. So if you don't have Battle Forges in your Railjack, then they can't use it. And, you know, they're stuck. They're just stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's a lot of good stuff here. Void Cloak, I really don't see the point in it at this stage in the game. There's no like spy type missions within the game unless you're trying to board the sentient ship and you want to get to that as soon as possible without engaging any of the enemies. You could do a Void Cloak. That would be acceptable, but it's very niche. It's not something that you need. And the only other good one is probably Death Blossom. Turret cooldown removed, completely removed, so there's no overheating with this thing. So if you really just want to unload on somebody, I've seen YouTube videos where people just they use all their gunners at once. They do a countdown, they do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then everybody just goes ham on a cruise ship with the Mark III Carcinix turrets, and they mow it down to nothing with Death Blossom. But it's not needed, because you have plenty of weaponry that does what Death Blossom does better and faster. Moving on, your Hyperflux. So this increases flux energy. You're going to need that with using Void Hole. This one's going to be important if you have Void Hole. If you don't have Void Hole and you're not using a whole lot of your avionics, then never mind it. Polar Coil, increased turret heat capacity. So this makes it so it takes longer for your turrets to heat up. Definitely going to need that one too. And then finally Predator, increase all turret critical chance by 75%. Again, I shouldn't have to explain that your turrets need to do the maximum amount of damage that they can. And for everything else down here, you don't necessarily have to worry about anything, but I will say that you're going to use this resource called Dialect to not only upgrade the slots in which your avionics go into, but you can upgrade the avionics themselves. So it's similar to Endo. Instead of Endo, you have Direct. So you're going to use Direct to upgrade everything instead of polarizing. You don't use Forma in this mode. You just upgrade the slots and you upgrade the mods with Direct. And you're going to get plenty of Direct whenever you go into... so like I showed you my turrets. So this is one that's just garbage, right? Lavon APOC, which APOC is probably second to Carcinix as far as Mark III goes, but it's still garbage to me because I already have my good turrets. So instead of repairing it, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click Scrap. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me Direct. And that's how you get Direct. Simple as that. You're going to find plenty of wreckage as you're playing Railjack, so don't even worry about that. Now with your payload, this is just pumping in your own resources to load up the Railjack, because all of these resources are going to be used. You're going to be using your carbides, your Copernics, your cubic diodes, and your pustrels. You're going to be using all of that for these different things. Your Revelite is to repair the ship. So if you're piloting, you're not going to be using your Omni tool too much to repair things. You're just going to be piloting. But if you're a gunner or an engineer, you might be putting out fires, you might be closing hull breaches, whatever you're going to do. The Omni tool uses Revelite to do it. With Flux Energy, this is what you use when you're pumping out avionics, when you're doing your Void Hole, your Particle Ram, whatever you're doing, it's going to use Flux Energy. Munitions is primarily the Tycho Seeker, so anytime you shoot a missile, you're using the resources for this. And then Dome Charge is your forward artillery. Anytime you're shooting your forward artillery, you're using resources for that. So it's going to be important for your engineer to keep you guys stocked up in the battle forges at the back of the ship. Now, intrinsics. We've been over this before, and I don't think that it really needs to be explained any more than what I already did in the first part of the video. So if you haven't seen that video, go back in time and watch that. What are you doing on this video? You're not ready. So intrinsics, I mean, again, I don't feel like I need to explain anything. We did a really good job of doing that in the first part. And then the last tab that you have here is just customization. It's just Space Barbie. As you can see here, I've got my cool little Excalibur, dual wielding his pistols. I've got this name, which I need you guys to remember that name, especially if you're into the written universe that I made outside of Warframe. If you're into the Exidium universe, this is a name you're gonna need to remember, because you're gonna see it pop up again. But that pretty much concludes my in-depth guide of the Railjack. If you do everything I encourage you to do within the avionics and the armor and the upgrades, you're gonna do fine. You're gonna do more than fine. You're not even gonna be challenged anymore. You're gonna be utterly bored with the competition. Now, so for the reason why I'm stepping away from Warframe, it has to do with the web series that I announced so long ago, ARX, A-R-X. I've been wanting to do that storyline. It's been killing me to do it. It's just I had no medium to do so. So what happened with my 2D animation software? I got in touch with one of the developers behind it at Brass Monkey. He actually contacted me on Discord. Well, I contacted him via email, and then we got in touch via voicemail or voice communication on Discord. And he confirmed to me that for what I was using Spriter for, I wasn't going to be able to do animation at all. And that sucked, because by that point I had already announced the Murakmo versus video and ARX, and that was what I was going to do. And that is the dilemma that I ran into. It had nothing to do with all the other issues that I had going on in my personal life. Some people know about that stuff, some people don't. But that was the reason why I never got around to doing ARX or the Murakmo versus video. So now, I have found an alternative way to produce the ARX web series, which I'm going to try to do. I'm working with all the objections amongst my friends. Like, literally, I'm about to go fist fight some of my friends because they're proving to me right here and now that they're really not that great friends. They're not dependable, they're not reliable. So, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, if you guys play Space Engineers and you're interested in it, find me on Discord. Join my Discord, DM me. We will get up to some crazy stuff. I've got some awesome stuff planned, but it is kind of not guaranteed. So if this endeavor doesn't work out, it's not something that's written in stone, you know what I'm saying? I can't, I have to work within the cooperation of people who are willing to cooperate, and right now there's not too many of my friends who are willing to cooperate, and it's honestly pissing me off. So I'm doing that. I'm working on ARX. As far as the Murakmo versus video goes, well, I have sold my vehicle, and I now have money that's going to be coming in so that I can afford a Oculus Rift. With the Oculus Rift, there is a free program called the Oculus Medium, and I will basically be using that to 3D sculpt, rig, paint, and animate my own models. With that, the door of opportunity is just blown open. I can do my own web series at that point. I can make look-alike models for Warframe and really do custom animations for the Warframe God Builds Season 1 trailers. I mean, the sky is the limit for me, and it's just going to take time. It's just going to take time. All of 2019 was a personal recovery for me, and sadly 2020 isn't going all that well because everything with YouTube is completely screwed up. I don't even want to be using this platform. The only reason I'm doing it is because I'm stuck on it. Like, nobody wants to switch, nobody wants to boycott, nobody wants to do anything against YouTube, so here I am. I'm forced to upload on this platform rather than Vimeo or dailymotion.com, but I will be opening up a Patreon as soon as I have stuff that I feel is worthy of your payment. I never wanted to go down that route. I never wanted to be one of those YouTubers that says, oh, hey, support me on Patreon so I can continue what I'm doing. Well, I never felt like any of the stuff that other YouTubers was doing was worth being paid to do. And so with me doing a web series with special effects and voiceovers and everything, just like you would see on Netflix, I think that that's worth being paid for. So you won't necessarily be paying to have that service. That service is going to be available to you regardless, but that service is going to be available to you early, and you'll probably be able to watch like all the episodes immediately. I'm still working out the perks and details, but bear with me, guys. This has been a long time coming. I'm just one person working on multiple projects, and trust me, with due time, I'm going to get it all done, and I'm going to get it all out on my page, and hopefully we'll have something better to talk about in 2020 other than Warframe. So, thank you guys again so much for cooperating with me and sticking with me for as long as you have. It's been a crazy run, and you know, this is only the beginning. I'm only just getting started. So, until next time, do as I always encourage you to do. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and until next time, this has been Vance signing out. Peace.